Gareth, I'm going to ask you, sir, to give a little more colour to your comments earlier.
Good evening. Thank you very much for having me on CNBC. I think the issue around food security is one of critical importance to South Africa. We need to make sure that we've got enough food to feed our people affordably. If you look at the rand, and your previous speaker was talking about the creeping up of the rand price against the dollar, that has a big impact on the price of food in South Africa, because all our soft commodities, namely maize, wheat, are dollar denominated, and we can see that as having a big impact on food inflation in this country. And if we have a situation where the food starts creeping up, the poor people in this country can't afford to eat, and no matter how much they get in terms of social grants, it becomes an affordability issue for South Africa.
Gareth, I think one of the things that I think would be interesting to highlight is why it's so important to be a net food exporter in terms of what we talk about import parity pricing versus export parity pricing. And if it's import parity pricing, how that can really slingshot your food inflation quite a bit if you actually switch to imports.
Well, we absolutely agree with that, and you can see that there is a lot of food coming into South Africa, and we are importing more and more food. But we are exporting as well, and we need to keep exports going because it provides jobs. It provides, more importantly than jobs, it increases standards of food being produced in this country and the quality, and through economies of scale, you can actually get more food produced cheaper. But I think you've got to look at South Africa in terms of the macro pricing, because food in South Africa is not subsidized by the government, and the farmers will export based on the global pricing, and they will plant based on previous year's returns. And if we are not getting decent prices for the farmers, they're not going to plant, and the prices are going to continue to rise. And that is the challenge we're having at the moment. There's been very, very good maize crops this year, and maize prices are good. And with global shortages of maize seeming to occur because of the U.S. drought, we're seeing a huge increase in the price of maize, and we're already seeing the price of meat going, and we're already seeing the price of poultry starting to rise, and we can see it happening towards the end of the year.
Gareth, my sense is, though, that the stagnation in food production is really symptomatic of three key sectors as mining, manufacturing and agriculture. In other words, investment in these three sectors has been on the wane, and I suspect it's been policy uncertainty that has actually seen investment come back, whether it's land reform or whether it's labour unrest in industry or mining charters, etc., that effectively these three key, which is the start of our value chain, have actually stagnated, and lack of food security is symptomatic of all three sectors.
I would absolutely agree with that. We're seeing at the moment one of our biggest problems in our retail business is supply out of stocks, and there has not been enough investment by suppliers and manufacturers in South Africa in food production. And as they're increasingly using South Africa as a base for exporting of manufactured food product into the sub-Saharan African region, there's less available for the South African market, and we're seeing shortages occurring in the local market as a consequence of that. Obviously, there are other reasons for that as well, but that's one of the big reasons. And manufacturing, agricultural, basic agriculture is the same thing, where there's been investment into agriculture, but a lot of that investment is to create product which is exported to global retailers or through foreign ownership of land into certain of the Asian markets or Middle Eastern markets, which is good for the economy, but it's actually reducing availability of food available for the South African market.